Hi, everyone. I just resent Tom the link to this live stream, the lunchtime live stream. I'm so excited to have him. I'm just texting him again because maybe I sent him the wrong link, but just sent you the link again. How is everybody doing on this Friday? So I am in New Hampshire. I'm at my parents' house. The Wi-Fi is, it's not amazing. It's not amazing, but hopefully we will make this work. Let me get to the chat here right now. I wanted to say welcome to a new member, Terry. I'm so happy to have you. And again, thank you for bearing with us as we get Tom back on here right now. Yes, Taryn, thanks for joining. I'm pinning your comment right now. Again, I do apologize for the delay. Tom should be on any minute. I'm wondering at this point if the delay is me and my internet, or it's something else. But let's see. Let's see. I'm very excited. Oh, here he is. I got him.
That was panicking.
What? No, I kind of was too. I was like, what's going on here?
Everyone.
Yes, Tom, I'm so happy.
You're
here. And I wanted to just give you this disclaimer. I am at my parents' house and the service, it's not amazing sometimes. So if I do drop off, I'm leaving it to you to just chat until I can get back on.
Oh, I got this. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, well, yeah, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. You and I spoke a few years ago, and I loved speaking to you. You are an amazing person. Your own personal journey is also amazing. So I want to get into all of that. But first, Tom, I am so excited that finally there's going to be a biopic about your brother, Chris.
What's amazing is it's the culmination of so many things. It's like over 25 years, everyone in the family thought 5 years at best and it'd be, over, and it just builds, and he's more relevant now, and there's more things going on. There's more interest and new. It's kind of like I do a lot of events, and I talk to like these Gen whatever, and I'm like, how do you even know who Chris is? Like, because my parents. So it's like, well, that's good parenting. That's great parenting.
Yeah. So, totally. I mean, I've made my kids, what have I made them watch? God. I mean, they're still young, but I definitely made them watch a little bit of Black Sheep because it's so funny. But it's interesting that it's taken this long, and the biopic is going to be based on the book that you wrote, the Chris Farley Show. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. That's the source material. Yeah.
Okay. And then how did that just get brought about? Like all of a sudden, were you approached? Did you say, hey, it's time?
Yeah. So, what was interesting is that this guy that that's going to play Chris, he's just been obsessed for years, even before, when he was new into this thing. He was just always, I want to do this. And I got a letter that he sent my mom and I years ago, like, I really want to do this. And I thought, well, I wasn't ready. I didn't know who this was. And it had to be right. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, Paul Walter Hauser becomes like, he did, and he started with doing these biopics. He did the, Richard Jewell.
Cool.
Tanya, he was amazing. And I'm like, oh, this guy, not only is he a great, and then Blackbird, of course, recently. And then, so not only is he a great actor, but he understands, he knows how to get into a character. And I'm like, okay, I think this guy's, and then we built the team from there. That was it just got one after another. People wanted to be a part of this.
Wow. So I didn't realize this. So Paul Walter Hauser was reaching out to you and your
Yeah,
mom for a while, being like, I want to play. Okay, because I'm a big fan of him. I really like his work. I've actually interviewed him during the pandemic. I
yeah,
interviewed him. I just me personally, and I am a huge fan of Chris. I kept thinking to myself, whoever plays Chris, they have a lot to live up to, like a lot. I mean, this is a very, very important role to so many of us, so many fans. I have not seen him be funny, Tom, and I'm not throwing shade or anything, but like, is he funny?
I don't think so. No, I'm kidding. Well, the thing is, I'm the older brother, so I had to share a bedroom with Chris. I never thought Chris was funny. So, it was just, stop it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so he,
funny.
so Paul coming to, through to me, like that's who I saw first. I was looking for that, like how I reacted to Chris originally. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
how, if he came at me with just humor, I would like, we're all funny in my
Okay.
family, but he reminded me of Chris, and it wasn't because of humor. So it
Yeah.
just it you know it made it was everything but humor that I saw at
Okay.
first.
Okay. That's really interesting. And
Yeah.
when does production start on this?
Oh, now you're getting into like I'm so out of my element. People ask me that all the time, and it's like
I'm just excited. I'm so excited.
no, well, see, nothing could have, the book rights were that's step one. So
Yeah.
none of this could happen without Tanner and I
Mhm.
saying, yes to it.
Yeah.
So, that kind of started, but once we said yes, and that was a process too, just we had some great, agency representation that went out and pitched it to a bunch of places and
Cool.
picked the best kind of, and then from once we said yes, then that studio had to go to do the deal with Paul and Josh Gad, who's going to be the director, who's
Oh,
amazing.
that's right. I
Oh
forgot
my
about
God.
Josh Gad. Yeah, I forgot about that. I mean, but also Tom, sorry to interrupt you, but why not have Adam Sandler direct or something like that? Someone who was super close.
Well, that's it. That is a great question, interesting question, and that was a natural. We discussed that. We had been talking for a couple of years. Just Tanner and I, Paul and Josh, and we were like, oh, we should approach Sandler. And I'm like, if you want my opinion, it's like you don't want to force something out. You want Sandler to do it because he wants to, not
Yeah.
because like, oh, because people are coming to him with. I can't imagine how many proposals he gets.
Right.
So we went the other way. And because and all of a sudden, with Sandler, maybe it was, we didn't want to just be tied into, the deals that he had with the
Right.
streaming services. So we went a different direction. I just said, I approached Laura Michaels and said, hey, I would love, just not for you to produce, but just just support it.
Yeah.
And Lauren got back to me and said, well, is this, it all comes down to, he goes, is this something your mother is okay with? I'm like, yes, mom's
Oh,
with it.
nice.
And it's like, then I'm good. Then I'm in. Lauren wants to make sure mom was happy with it. And so I just thought, just getting Lauren's kind of blessing was wonderful. And he could talk to Adam, but then he came back. It's like, yeah, not only but I want to produce it too. I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that at all. And he goes, let me deal with Adam. So,
Okay.
and Adam will probably come in, at some point when he wants to and how he wants to, but
Yeah.
not us kind of, hey, you should do this. We want you to do this. We did it the right way. I love how we kind of put it all together, just, we didn't force it.
Okay, so Adam Sandler, it's not like he's not going to be involved. It's just not at that stage yet for anyone to. Okay, I mean, because like I think about, their relationship, and I saw Adam Sandler live, and he does this great comedy show, and then all of a sudden he's singing his Chris Farley song, and I'm sobbing. He's got the screen with all the memories, and I'm a mess, and I'm just like, man, that was a true friendship, right?
Oh my gosh! And I'll tell you something about that clip. And we helped him out with a lot of pictures and stuff. But I was at my mom's house one day years ago, and the phone rings, and I hear her pick up, and I don't know. She's like, "Hi, how are you? Oh, so good to hear. How things?" And and she's like, "Oh, it's so good." And she's chatting like it was just some normal person. She goes, "How are things in New Hampshire?" And then I thought, oh, because my mom's from Boston, so it's like we have a lot of relatives out in the East Coast. So I'm like, oh, she's talking to a cousin or something, and has this chat like she is talking to a cousin. And she hangs to the phone. She goes, "That was nice." I go, "Who are you talking to?" She goes, "Adam called me, and he wanted to see how I was doing, and he said, I'm going to do this thing for my show, but I want to make sure that you're okay with it." And I'm like, that's the way he approached it. He wasn't going to do it without talking to mom first.
Yeah.
And just beautiful. It was so, and that's why it's so heartfelt, is because everyone, with around Chris, because as you said, just has so much, it's so much connected to they're just how they grew up, and they're so connected to it, and they're so protective of it. It's not just us as a family. They it's nice, and it's so it's been nice. It's the beautiful thing about all of this over the years is that yes, it was a tough loss for us as a family, but it's a lot less, because we got to share that loss and that grief with everyone, and everyone comes up to me to this day, just, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, that's healing. That's that. I don't. We were never in isolation with that loss, because every day somebody comes up and
it's so crazy, Tom, because I was much younger. I was a kid, and I specifically remember where my dad was sitting when he told us that Chris had passed away, and I was gutted. I was so upset. I remember just being like, "What? No, that's not true," and almost not really believing it for a while, or not wanting to believe it. So, I can't imagine your family and just what a loss that was. But something you had told me a few years ago, and a story that I liked, was the last time that you saw Chris, which I believe was in New York, and he was hosting SNL. And if you don't mind just sharing that story, because I just really like it, and I like your last kind of interaction.
Well, it was tough too. But I was working in Greenwich, Connecticut, and Chris, I knew, I by that time I knew the kind of the schedule of things, and it was Wednesday, and I hadn't heard from Chris, and I knew he was in town.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so I remember talking to my wife. I was like, I haven't heard from Chris. It's weird. She goes, "Just drive down to the city." And so I said, "Okay." So you're right. And so I went down and kind of surprised him. So, but and it was, he was kind of nervous coming back, but, and I'm like, maybe I'll, maybe have lunch tomorrow, and maybe we can talk about the, have a little intervention. It wasn't a good place. And as I said, "Chris, I'm going to leave, I'm going to let you do your thing." But as I was leaving, I said a few goodbyes to people, but as I was leaving, not feeling the best, I went by a room and that Chris was in, and he and Jim Brewer and Tracy Morgan were in the room kind of talking about ideas and skits that they could do that weekend. And they were laughing so hard. It was, they had whipped all of the into a frenzy. And it was just these three guys who are just, one is just as funny as the next, and they're just reveling in their the laughter and humor and their
Yeah.
talent, and it was. I walked out. I'm like, God, I'm so glad I saw that. I
Yes.
remember it so well.
And I guess I'm blocking out the whole
Yeah.
thing of like that was sort of his peak of, I guess, the despair of addiction that he was in. And you can, and I appreciate the fact that his last appearance on SNL is not widely circulated. I
Yeah.
actually do appreciate that because, it wasn't his best performance. Obviously, he was in a really bad spot. And something else I remember that you said is you showed up to 30 Rock, like you said, you saw this, this amazing moment that obviously you'll have forever. But didn't Chris say something like, yeah, I'll call you, we'll do lunch, we'll do whatever. And then he never called.
Yeah. So yeah, the next day, and it's funny, just on that last show, you're right. I'm glad we don't see it too much. I saw just this last week, I saw an interview that Rob Smigel did, who was one of the main writers and a true friend of Chris's. Not really happy with that last episode. He didn't talk. He's like, yeah, it's not good. And I'm glad that he acknowledged that. Yeah, I said, like, let's have lunch tomorrow. And I called up a buddy of mine that worked, actually a friend it was a neighbor of ours growing up in Wisconsin. And he was working in New York in the towers. And one of Chris's closest friends, just Kevin Cleary, Chris couldn't put anything over on Kevin. So I said, Kevin, can you meet me? Let's try and, kind of reach Chris. And so we called up, went to the Waldorf, called up, and Chris goes, give me a half hour, I'll be down. And so we waited in the lobby for a half hour. What are we going to talk to him about? And half hour goes, and we call back up, and the hotel operator said he's put a block on his phone. And he shut us out because he knew, if it was me, but it was me and Kevin, he knew what it was about, and he just didn't want to go there and didn't want us to. And so I never saw him again. It was a month later, he was gone. But and then Kevin Cleary, didn't make it out of 9/11 either. So it was a really surreal moment.
Yeah. No, I don't think I realized that either. But you have a lot of great memories, and you say, Chris wasn't that funny. I lived with him, but you had another story about, I think it was like during Thanksgiving or something where he would like yell down to your dad or whoever about porn magazines or something. I don't remember exactly, but it made me laugh so hard.
Yeah. I don't even remember. He was always doing that. I mean, just pushing the envelope. And the thing is that it was never malicious. It was always just outrageous, but it was extremely funny. You're like, oh man, it was so embarrassing. But then inside you're like going, oh my God, that was hysterical.
Yeah, like he was trying to embarrass like your parents or something or somebody, and he's like, "Hey, you forgot these porn magazines," and your dad's like, "What?" Like
he did go over. There's a story that I remember that Johnny tells. He did go over the line once with my dad, and it was a Christmas. I wasn't there. I was still out east living. It was a Christmas around this time, and he went out with Johnny. Johnny picked him up at the airport in Madison, and he goes, what's in the bag? And he goes, Chris goes, I went to the, like, whatever, the XXX store, the naughty store, and bought some Christmas cookies. And Johnny goes, no, you didn't. He goes, yeah, I got them for everyone. And it would be really funny. And so Johnny describes this scene, Christmas Eve, everyone's kind of opening their presents, and first mom opens one up, and it's just like this negligee, just like really just. And my dad goes, "Huh."
Oh my gosh!
And then then another sex. Somebody else. Johnny opened up a sex toy, whatever, and then my sister opened up like just a really phallic bad thing.
No.
And that's when my dad goes, that's it. And Christmas was over right then. And Johnny just like, I told you not to do that.
How old was Chris? Like, how old was he at this point?
This was, like just probably around that. It wasn't that last, because he died, that last after he hosted. So it was probably the Christmas just prior to that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was right then and there.
Right. So your dad's still like, Chris, cut the shit. Come on, man.
We tried to, look for the humor and everything, but it just was just too extreme for my father. It was like, and it's okay if it was if somebody else, the joke was on somebody else, but when it was my mom and my sister, that's when my father had to step in. Like,
totally.
No, they don't do that to us.
You guys are, you come from a devout Catholic family. I mean, I think that's pretty well known. So your dad was probably like, that's my daughter, and that's why.
Yeah, it was like, yeah. Is it one time Chris didn't read the room.
Yeah.
And he paid for it. He definitely paid for it.
Did you ever spend any time on set with him when he was doing any of the films like Tommy Boy or Black Sheep or any of those movies?
Films, because I was, as I said, I was in New York and in Connecticut with my 3 kids, and I had my hands full with that. So when he was at SNL, in my territory, absolutely, I was up at 30 Rock all the time. But when we moved to Hollywood and started doing the movies, that was just, I don't cross the Mississippi. I stay where So my brothers, Johnny and Kim, that's when they picked up the responsibilities of watching Chris. And so I never really went to any of those. Because they're all on the West Coast. I just.
And it's very widely known that David Spade didn't attend Chris's funeral or his service because he physically and mentally could not. Did he reach out to you guys, and did you speak with him?
Not so much about that. David, he's been such a great friend to both my brothers, and now my son is out in LA trying to get in the business, and he's taking them under his wing. He and my son Tommy came out to Chicago a couple weeks ago for, David had some gig, and he had Tommy as his Sherpa, and we went to dinner, and we had a wonderful dinner. It was just, I was having dinner with my son and one of my little brother's best friends. It was just really, my relationship with David, as my brother's, good friend is just that. I see him as that. And, we don't really talk about, we didn't even talk about the movie, he didn't, he was like, about it. He said, the one thing he did mention, he goes, which was funny. He goes, I was talking to Rob Lowe the other day about the movie. And Rob says to me, is like, I wonder who's going to play me. I'm like,
wait, play Rob Lowe?
Yeah. Rob said that to David. I wonder who's going to play me. Like, you're the only one still around that can play yourself still, you freak. Like,
that's so fun. I mean, they all could play themselves, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. And they could.
Yeah. So that is interesting. I was actually thinking about that as we were discussing it before, but like, are you going to have to cast like Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Rob Schneider, like David Spade, or could they play themselves? No, they're not going to play themselves. That's corny, right? That's corny.
That's the stuff that really gets weird for me, because but I'll tell you a funny story. When we were first talking about this, my mom was still kind of like, is this a good thing? I don't know about this, and blah blah blah. And I really didn't know how I could get her kind of in, to accept it. And I figured it out. We were talking one day, and she was kind of uncomfortable about it. And I said, Mom, I was talking with, Kevin and Johnny and my son. We were talking about the casting thing. And who we thought would be great for you, who's about the age you were, back then who's age appropriate. We thought it would be a great person to play you would be Annette Bening. And Mom goes, Annette Bening, I like her. Totally got her off the whole, like it totally changed her whole mode. Like when she started talking about it, casting.
That is so fun. And I always, I remember your mom from the Mother's Day episode.
Yeah.
She's so lovely and she's so classy and just put together. And it's funny because Chris, he had that like that good, sweet Catholic boy, frat boy look that it just, he was as crazy as he was and funny, he was polished. He was put together, and that's from your family and your parents.
Well, I'll tell you, that polished, good Catholic boy, that is my father. My father is a good Irish, the right joke with the right crowd all the time, blah, blah, blah. My mother is Boston Irish. And all the crazy stuff, the risk taking, I don't care what's going to come out of my mouth in public kind of thing. I mean, it's all always appropriate, but that's my mom. We would be at dinner and she's, at a restaurant, and the waiter would have to know everyone who's who and who's with who and who's not there and why they're not there.
Yeah.
My mom is always kind of,
That's great. I guess that's kind of me too. If I had to, my husband's definitely more reserved and I'm the one that's like, talking crazy and just being probably too honest. But I want to just talk about you and your family and how you specifically got sober after Chris passed away, but it wasn't right away. It took some time, right, for you to admit, okay, maybe this is not just fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's sobriety and then there's recovery, and I started, trying to like, maybe I shouldn't drink because it was very obvious that drink was a problem in our family. So I could stop. I had a couple long bouts of sobriety, just not drinking, and thinking that was what the problem was. But I was still kind of causing all sorts of problems with the relationships and jobs and things like that. I'm like, but I'm not drinking. I didn't get it at all. It took me all these years. And during that time also, I was going into schools and communities and talking about Chris's story, thinking that would help people. But all that time I was talking about somebody else's addiction and just being sober. And then just before COVID, I got tired of it all again. And I gave, recovery one more time and started going to meetings and realized it wasn't about drinking. It was about just the way I process stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then I started going into and talking about my story. And it blew me away that people were like, really wanted to hear it. And I was like, but don't you want to hear about Chris? And people were like, I mean, if you want to talk about him, but you're here, you're in recovery. I'm in recovery. I want to hear, I want you to motivate me. And that just changed my whole, life, which has been amazing.
That is amazing. And so I guess I didn't see it that way or position it that way. You're right. Sobriety versus recovery. They're two different things. And I mean, recovery is obviously extremely important. And you are in it, you were living it. And I don't remember this, but are John and Kevin, are they sober or?
Yes, they're sober as far as I know, but I don't know if they kind of work recovery like I do because I think we talk about it more than we do. It would be but it's, but and that's not so bad. My mom was the first one to get sober. She's been sober for over 30 years, so you can be okay with sobriety, but I needed recovery. Because I could be sober and still feel have fear, still have self-doubt. And so that's what I wanted to work on. It's interesting. One of the things I talk about in my recovery talks, I know this was true for Chris, but it was definitely true for me, is that we could be in the middle, usually a bar, in the middle of a bar, surrounded by people, making everyone laugh, center of attention, and yet couldn't feel more isolated than if we were standing in the middle of a desert. That's the thing. We were always making everyone laugh, but inside we weren't like, but why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
that's what I say. That it wasn't until I got in recovery and started working on those feelings that's made the difference.
And you also have a book about that as well. Is that right?
No, I just one book,
You,
just Chris's biography.
okay.
And I
Okay.
used it like I hope to use the movie,
Yeah.
because so many recovery themes in there, and talk about that. One of my favorite things to talk about is I was very fortunate that I lived in New York when Chris was on SNL. When he came out his third year, he did a couple trips to treatment centers and just to go back into the same old kind of thing. But his third year out, he, instead of going back to his big apartment, on Riverside, he went to a sober living house, on TV every Saturday night, but checking into his cot every night. And that's when you really saw his talent just go through the roof, when he was working his recovery program. And I didn't know, to me, I just was like, he's dressing better. That's all I saw. I didn't know the difference, Like,
Yeah,
it was important to me, well, you look nice.
Now I'm wondering, because I can't remember, did Lorne Michaels, was he the one that sent Chris to rehab and said, hey, bro, you gotta go? Well, yeah.
Lorne was just very good, for a lot of, for some people, that exhibited those kind of addictive behaviors, I don't think would have lasted long on SNL. But I think Lauren, just really saw just what a great person Chris was. So he still had a business to run. So he wasn't going to let Chris run rep. But Chris, because he trusted Lauren and Lauren accepted him. He listened. It took a long time, but finally listened. Lauren just said, Chris, you can't do this on my show, period. But also at that time, who really knew addiction well and really helped was Al Franken. He was really,
Wow.
and I think because Al was, there at the creation, that kind of lit the spark with Chris those early SNL days. He listened to Al too.
Wow.
And so, one
Okay.
by one, more voices were added, but those were the two, I think, initially.
Lauren and Al, that's super interesting. And when he went, I guess, for the first time, did you guys feel hopeful?
Yeah, because he was going to treatment, but we probably thought, I'm sure, and my parents did, like a lot of people still see treatment as 30 days and I'm cured. And as we know, that is absolutely not it.
Yeah.
And Chris thought that too. He thought he would like do his thing, like he was going to a spa, and he was out like, okay, I'm ready to go. And no, you got to continue. It's rest of life. You got to work at it, and that's why. And you got to go in for the right reasons. So the first couple of times he would go in because he thought he was going to lose this dream job, and the wrong reasons, or to please people. People want me to go to rehab, so I'll do that.
Yeah.
Until he went and saw that there was a reason for him to be there, and he wanted, he really wanted to live a better life. So that made a difference. But it took a while, it took some time.
Yeah, and I think we can see it, on screen and throughout some of the episodes, right? When you can tell he's doing better in his life in certain places. And you can also tell in other places where he's like extra sweaty or he's struggling to breathe extra hard, right? And you're like,
that's so hard. Yeah.
And that is another reason why I mentioned I'm so glad, and I've said this before, that last episode that he hosted of SNL is not widely circulated. This is random, but do you remember anything about this feud between Bill Murray and Chris and Adam and Rob Schneider, and just Bill Murray talking all this crap about them?
No, now that you said, there was something when he came back to host, we were talking about that. And he, at that point, he was looking at these young Turks like, they don't know what what they're doing here. I can see Bill saying that,
Yeah.
but
I
it
was
wasn't
curious.
a feud.
Right, right. No, I was just curious because he did come back, and I remember there was obviously it was probably from a gossip column
Yeah.
somewhere. But I was like, oh, that makes sense. But something that's just extremely almost eerie to me, I guess, is thinking about Almost Heroes with Chris and Matthew Perry. And
Right?
oh my gosh, I mean, I'm thinking about those two on that movie set together. I mean, do you have any details or information or anything that, like, I mean,
Well, what's
were they
interesting.
spoken to? Were they like, you two have to be sober? Like, how did that work?
Well, it's funny. One of my brothers would tell me because they were on the set is
Yeah.
that the movie was supposed to be, it was a leading man vehicle for Matthew,
Yeah.
and Chris was the sidekick, and that's how they kind of envisioned this movie going forward. But then they showed up on set, and everyone kind of saw, I guess, the condition Matthew was in, and went, okay, this isn't a Matt Perry movie anymore. This is a Chris Farley movie, or at least it's a dual. I mean, Chris is going to have to carry a little bit more weight, and which was good for Chris because it allowed him to do more than just, the funny comic Fatty Falls Down routines that he loved to talk about. So I saw some funny, I mean, I just saw some stuff that I was hoping to see with Chris in that, but it was because
Matthew Perry wasn't. And at this point, I researched some of the timelines before, and this was around the time that Matthew Perry had stated in his memoir that he doesn't remember filming like a full season of Friends, not just one episode. He's like, I don't remember filming this season. And that was right around the time of Almost Heroes. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, Chris Farley shows up on set. He's fun. He's hilarious. He's like the it guy right now. And then you've got Matthew Perry, who's the it guy in his own right, on sitcom television and everything. These two together, I'm thinking they are just going to combust on set and maybe get everybody in trouble here.
Yeah. And what's telling is that you don't hear, and I never did afterwards, that there was some of these great bonding stories, and Chris was always at his best when he had his ensemble around him. He loved, and here was a movie that was directed by Chris Guest, who is like the king of ensemble movies.
Yeah.
And you would think putting these people together is like, all right, now go. And if they didn't click, something was wrong. If they didn't kind of engage in that kind of, ensemble kind of, environment, there was something wrong. There had to be something wrong because, you would have heard some great stories coming out of, putting all these people into a movie,
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't want to bring up sad memories, but when you found out that Chris had passed, were you surprised? Were you waiting? What was going on in your head as you processed this?
Yeah, well, we always had hope, we always thought, like, when the roller coaster that it was always going to come back up again.
Yeah.
Because Chris, he had such great support structures, as they say, like, oh, you got to hit rock bottom. Chris was never going to hit rock bottom. In terms of his support structures, where he's going to hit rock bottom was when he was feeling isolated and alone. And that's kind of where he was. But I mean, as I said many times, I mean, I was in a friend of mine's office in Connecticut, and he had a TV on with CNN playing, and that's how I learned, newscast.
I didn't know that. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, it was. We were talking. There's a friend of mine from Georgetown that we were talking about let's come up with some. He had some entertainment industry experience, and we were trying to come up with some kind of fun little project, charity thing that we could bring Chris and some of his guys in. And he had this TV and was muted because we were meeting. And I saw some clip of Tommy Boy, and I'm like, and at that point, I'm pretty used to seeing my brother on TV, but I was just curious, like, what's he, as an older brother, I was like, what's he done now?
Yeah, yeah.
Turn the volume up and the screen goes to his apartment in Chicago. And the anchor's saying that we just heard Chris Farley died of an overdose. And I was like, and this was, I may have had a cell phone. I don't know if I'm that old,
97. I think it was 97, right?
So
yeah.
no one knew where I was. So my friend just said, there's a phone. And I called home. And as soon as my dad picked up the phone, I hear in his voice. And I was like, oh my God, this is really, this is real. And so,
wow.
So I yeah, we knew it was a possibility, but there it was. Now it was real. And I mean, I drove like the 2 miles home to my house in Fairfield, and I don't remember any of it. I was crying the whole time.
I just can't believe, I mean, I don't think they can do that anymore. They can't announce, I'm sorry, I'm like the worst. I can't they can't announce a death before all of the family is notified at this point.
Well, I'm sure my father was, but we just, it didn't flow out. I'm sure they told my parents, but I didn't know. They couldn't find me. And now you can text somebody, you can get their attention right away. They didn't know where I was. And so and then it just got, the life changed, and I Access Hollywood bounding on my door at 11 o'clock. I'm like, no, I was smart. At least I was smart enough to know, like, I don't owe you.
Day of, or like that week?
I got 3 calls. See, I had done an interview with them months before.
Yeah.
Like, are you worried about Chris? I don't know why I even did that. But that person thought that we had some connection. So, like, can I get a comment? I'm like, no.
Not the day of.
4 phone calls from 2 o'clock to 10, and I'm like, no, I'm just not ready. And then at 11 o'clock at night, the doorbell rings, and it's the film crew. I'm like, I told, like, when we were in the area, it's like, what no.
God, wow.
I don't, and I'm very happy that, and I think my family was all like the same way. Is like, no, I don't need to talk about this. I don't owe you
no, I mean, I'm shocked that, I feel like, I'm in media. But I cannot imagine that is so invasive, so intrusive. And I'm like, I guess my heart is breaking just thinking of you on your drive home, like just finding out on TV and not being able to call him and not being able to, because I'm sure that's the first thing you do. You're like, I want to call him. Yeah. And I'm sure you did, right? I'm sure you were like, I want to call him and see if it's true.
Yeah. I still have his number in my iPhone. I never took it out. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm like, oh, Trevor's here. Hey, Trevor. Sorry, I'll take a break to, that's Trevor. Trevor and I follow each other through you, actually. So I'll just wipe my.
Oh, is that Trevor from down south?
Yeah, I thought it was Wisconsin, but maybe I'm an idiot. I don't know. I thought
we talk the same. No, I know Trevor. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Trevor. Oh, Trevor from Madison. No. Yeah. Okay. So he's
awesome. Sorry. And I'm like, sorry. This is giving me a minute to like catch myself as I'm just going through this chat. Thank you everyone so much for joining. I know, I'm sorry. I'm making everybody cry. No, because I was like a super fan, and I told you, I remember as a kid where I was, and I don't think I processed that you found out by watching the news and seeing all of this unfold on the news. So I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. And
it sounds worse than it was.
No, it doesn't.
Or make it worse. It is what it is.
No, I think it is exactly what it is. Where it's like this
honestly, it spared me of my father and mother having to tell me, and thank God for that.
Okay, if you want to find the positive in that, I love that.
Yeah, I don't think I could have handled that.
Yeah.
news coming from them, hearing from like, no.
Yeah. And
So,
and just refresh my memory. Did he get the handprint on the Hollywood, the star, whatever you call it? Was that after he passed
yeah,
away? And you
so no handprint, no.
no,
But
sorry, it wasn't his hand, right? Because
no, it would have been a handprint if it. No, it was after the fact. I think he was one of the first people. It took a while. A lot of effort to get the star.
yeah,
Because that was something new. But
I've seen pictures on Getty Images of you and your brothers, I believe, that were all there for that day. And that must have been, I mean, that must have been an incredibly emotional, but just like prideful day for you guys. Listen to me.
It was.
Your family, or sorry?
It was really nice.
Yeah.
As I said, Adam was there, David was there, all his boys. It was great. Gary Busey was there.
Oh God, yes. Talking about buttered sausages? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God, with his tinfoil hat. Yeah.
Yes.
He's a kick.
Yeah, and I mean, it must give you just an immense sense of pride and joy and happiness just to know how much Chris was loved and how, like you said at the beginning, how much joy he still brings to people. Like I said, I'm making my son watch his movies, and yeah, it really must. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I guess on you mentioned you had lunch or dinner with David Spade and your son, but do you still speak to his friends on a regular basis, or do they ever just reach out to you to check in?
Not really. My brothers, because they're in the business, and now my son. Like Johnny just heard he got a part, and he's going to be filming Happy Gilmore 2. That's going to.
Oh, that's great.
I think no, my brother Johnny.
Oh, your brother John. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes,
he's got a part, but I told him, I was like, all right, well, get a part for my son too.
Yes, duh. Okay, totally.
Get those. He deserves a little nepotism. Let's go.
I love that you say that. I would be the same way. I'd be like, yo, do you know who my family is at this point? I mean, come on.
Tommy, to his credit, and he's the original Tommy boy. He's Tommy the third, and that Chris played Tommy the third, Tommy Kennedy the third. So he just does his own thing. He's really, he never really kind of plays that card at all.
Tell him he should. Tell him, like, it's like, son, I give you permission. Play it, okay?
I do. I know. I'm like, hey, but all my kids are the same way. My daughter Emma is both of them are out in New York, and she's doing starting a podcast, and she's mostly on disability stuff, but she could play the Farley thing, but she doesn't, but so, but I'm like,
Totally. I mean, I was just thinking about, I completely forgot about this. And now that we're talking about it, I forgot that Kevin did 5 Together. I don't know if anyone in the chat remembers.
Together. Yeah, Together.
Or Together. I don't know if I said, yes, Together. And what was that song? God, it was a parody boy band.
I know. I know my calculus. You plus me equals us. Yeah.
I know my calculus. That's right. It says you plus. Okay, I'll stop. But now it's going to be in my head.
But I was like, I was. He asked me. He's like, "Oh, you want to go to the MTV Music Awards?" I'm like, "Okay." It was like the 2000 awards. It was like one of the most like iconic ones.
Yeah.
And we're in like the 5th row, and I'm like, "Why do we have these seats?" And he's like, "Because my album's outselling half these people." I'm like, "What?" He goes, it's 15 on Billboard. It's like, but you're an actor. What's going on here?
Yep. Yeah. And I bought it. I bought the single, and then I bought the album. It was so funny. And I'm remembering now, I said 5 Together because these guys at my high school, they did a parody, and that became really popular. So it was just, it was, it was great.
God, I had one.
Oh, I was like, are you?
Oh, there it is.
Find a mouse? Oh, no way. Oh my God. That is such a throwback.
I literally had, I'm like,
Wait, that is such a
Why do I
throwback.
have the CD and it's still, like, why do I have the CD? I can't even play it.
Wait, and I can see the really beautiful picture of Chris with the crown behind you as well.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
She has a band out of like Seattle or Oakland, I think.
Wait, Trevor just said the Mock Boys band.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. That is so freaking cool. Oh my gosh. Wow. So I wanted to ask you just really quickly just about Chris and you know I guess the build up to him going to SNL and becoming this household name, because a lot of his skits were originated in Chicago. I know that the van down by the river, Matt Foley, based on someone that you guys knew. Is that right?
Actually, you know who wrote that was Bob Odenkirk. Wrote it.
Wow.
And he based it on some guy that he knew, but he also knew that there was only one person that could play this.
Yeah.
And so he wrote it for Chris.
Yeah.
And and they brought that well.
Right. And that was, God, I mean, I think it's funny because I will watch certain skits now only to watch like Chris and let's say Adam Sandler or like David Spade or somebody try not to break character and laugh, because that is the best part. Well, and I'll find something new every time.
Yeah. I mean, that was new. That, we grew up on Carol Burnett, which you saw that all the time. These guys, people were so funny that they couldn't stop laughing. But Chris tried to do that on SNL, and Lauren would get so mad. And now it's part of the, that was Jimmy Fallon's whole thing. He couldn't keep a straight face. But now but back then Lauren was like, stop ruining my show.
Oh, that is so funny, because there's this skit with Adam Sandler and Chris when he said, it's the give me cancer now, God, when he's like, oh, Hank, that one.
Yeah. The Zaggett's Guide. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one part where Adam and Chris look at each other, and Adam, you have to see it. He just goes like that. And it's so classic. It's just like, you can see the enjoyment and how much they enjoy each other and how much they just love each other. And they it's like, it's a moment that you can't recreate ever.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the facial. It's like at that same time, Chris was also put his hand on Adam's like knee, and started rubbing his knee, and like that's the stuff we would do in church. We try and make each other. We would do stuff like that, like looking very pious. Then we'd like hold our hand. We were like, and we would just laugh. We would just start laughing in the middle of church. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Oh, I mean, and that just makes so much sense. It makes so much sense just about Chris and your family, and all of you have such amazing and wonderful, engaging personalities, which is such a gift to the world. Honestly, it's I mean it. I'm kind of sad that it took us so long to do this again. Because like I said, it's been 2 years. And by the way, you're supposed to tell me when you visit your daughters, and you never did. So I'm putting that on you.
Okay. Well, I'm coming out there. We go to the US Open every year. So I'm coming out there Labor Day weekend, the 30th to the 2nd.
Okay. Well, Labor Day, nobody's in the city. That's annoying. So I won't even be here on Labor Day.
I literally, every year I come, I'm like, I call people I know. I'm like, oh, I'm not here this weekend. Like, oh.
Exactly. New Yorkers, they peace out Labor Day weekend. No one wants to be in that nasty, like smelly, not.
I know, but I love the Open. Oh my gosh. It's just
it is fun. The Open's super fun. So I don't blame you for that. But because you said your daughters live in New York.
In Brooklyn. Yeah, right in Brooklyn. Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
I did tell my daughter, like I said we are going to connect. I want to connect them with you, because I think they're.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would love to, especially if you said one of them is doing a podcast. We should totally connect. Yeah.
And the other one she works for Ralph Lauren in the archives. She's all in fashion, and just two totally different, wonderful.
No, I love that. I would love to connect with her also.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really excited for production to start, on the biopic. And I know that you're going to be all hands on deck. You are going to be absolutely part of this, again, for anyone that's just joining, because this is based on your book, The Chris Farley Show, that you wrote with Tanner Colby. And I mean,
you know,
like I said,
what's really cool is we were coming up with ideas, and some of them I was like, I don't know if I like that one. But then about a year ago, Josh Gad, we kind of got back on a Zoom call, and Josh goes, I thought a lot about it. And he goes, I was trying to, think of this person with all this talent and these demons, and all I could come up with was Bob Fosse. And I started to ask myself, what does Chris Farley's All That Jazz look like? I'm like, do that. Yes.
Wait, I don't get it though. What do you mean? Like Chris Farley doing like a Fosse dance
No,
move?
no, no. If you look at Bob Fosse and well, look at All That Jazz, which
Okay.
isn't, it isn't this like birth. It was just, it really showcased this, amazing talent with all these demons. And they're like, all right, so we don't have to do this timeline thing. Let's just find this moment that showcases like All That Jazz did for Fosse, like this, like there it is.
Okay. I feel like, yeah, sure, but like easier said than done. How do you do that exactly? How do you get to that place?
There
Right?
was, I mean, there's a moment in time, that it all kind of came kind of together, when Chris was Chris. And again, I don't know. I mean, there's so much that goes into Chris. Like you could do the Wisconsin thing, which is a huge part of it, but not everyone will get that. We spent all of our summers in the north of Wisconsin at a summer camp, and as campers and as counselors in college, that is a huge part of who we are. But no one will get that. All these little things. Our family. There's so much in our family that, like, not everyone would get, and maybe we don't want to, showcase that so much.
Sure.
So it's not a history book, and I told my family this, and I this is how I look at it. It's like, it's an art form. It's a movie. It's not a history book. It's not a like factual thing. So if something comes that we as a family know that's not true, it's like, that's not the point.
Yeah.
I want everyone to connect with it. Kind of like with my book. If I wrote my book, just my memory, it wouldn't be the same. But Tanner and I interviewed all these people from growing up to second state to camp to college. And for me, seeing how these other people saw Chris, like, oh my God, they really saw Chris more than I was seeing him sometime. And I like to always say, like, I've got a better relationship with Chris now than I ever did when he was alive because of this book. I want the movie to be the same way. I want people to connect.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to it so much because, like I said, this has been such a long time coming for his fans. And I think it was it A&E that did the documentary that you and your brothers participate? Yeah. I mean, that was incredible. Like, so good. I've seen that like a million times.
Amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, just you guys sitting around having a steak. Yeah. Like,
I told us, like, well, we want to interview all your brothers. And I go, you want to do this right? They go, yeah. I go, bring us all to New York, sit us around a table at a steak place, put a big chunk of meat in front of us and let us go to town. And that's what we did. And the director was like, oh my God, you were right. It's like, this is how we interacted. It was over food, and it was beautiful.
Yeah. And so seeing that was really exciting. It was so exciting. And I think maybe me as a fan and as a viewer, what I also want to see is, I want to see something that has never been shown before. And I know it's tough, but you all knew Chris so well. He knew a lot of people. I want to know what was going on inside his head. I want to see the struggles that maybe he dealt with off screen. He's doing all this physical stuff and he's so funny. Then he gets offset. I mean, what is he thinking? What is he struggling with? What is, what I mean? Like who is he talking to? I want to know these things. I want to know that he was happy. I want to know that if he wasn't happy, how you know what I mean? How he dealt with that. I'm just so curious, I guess, if that makes sense.
Well, I 100%. But I my mom kind of broached this up again. It's like, am I going to be we're going to bring all the family stuff? And I go, I hope when I look at Chris, I look at all his life. He had what I love to call, like, my probably got so good at improv. He always had his ensemble. When he was in high school, he had his guys, and in college, he had his buddies. At Second City, at SNL, at camp, he always had this group of people around him that allowed him, that accepted him, allowed him to be who he was, and he trusted them. And that's when he was at his best. And when he went out to LA, he kind of lost all that. He went back into just being isolated and alone, and he lost that ensemble. And I'm like, that is, to me, that's how I see, when I see Chris in different parts of his life, is like, it's not so much what he's going through. It's like, is he connected? Does he have his ensemble? If he does, he's in a good place. When he doesn't, it's not. And isn't that true of all of us?
Sure. But yeah. And when you said you went to his hotel and tried to, talk to him and meet with him, and he shut you out and he turned off his, his phone, I think that's probably when you knew, okay, he doesn't have his ensemble right now. He's
right.
Yeah. Okay. And that, I think that's some things that we would like to see. I guess we just want, I want him to be humanized, if you will, like, not this larger, of course that's part of it, but like make him.
But that's who he was. And I think that's why we love Chris and admire, and still remember him, is because he wasn't, not in all the things he did. He doesn't have a character per se. He wasn't playing a character like say Dana Carvey has the church lady. Whatever he did, it was Chris doing that. That's why people think they know Chris, because he brought himself to every role. Somebody said in my book, I forget who, said there's two kinds of actors. There's the kind that look at a role, look at a character, and start putting on these attributes and piling them on, and then there's the kind that start peeling away all the unnecessary stuff and bring themselves just completely naked to this role. And that's who Chris was. He just like, I'm going to shed all the stuff and I'm going to bring me to this role. It's me doing this character. And like, so even when he was doing a Matt Foley, it was like, but that's Chris. He brought so much of Chris to that.
Yeah. I'm thinking about that. I know, I'm laughing, but your kids, they're probably just old enough that they got to meet him, or were they too young? They did meet him.
Yeah. It's funny. They were young. Yeah. I think my oldest daughter, Mary Kate, was 3 going on 4.
Okay.
No. She was born in 91. So she was like 6. Yeah.
So she might remember him a bit.
She does. There was this wonderful, one of my favorite memories was when my son Tommy was born, and he had to stay. He had something, that he had to get corrected, so he had to stay in New York Hospital for a week. So we had to come and pick him up a week after he was born. He was in the ICU. This huge bulking kid with all these. So we went to pick him up, and we asked Chris to babysit the 2 girls, and oh my God, he was so happy and proud because he was still working his recovery. He was sober, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm so thankful." And so we got down to the city. His apartment was down on 17th and 2nd, and we're on the with the 2 girls, and we're ringing his bell, and no answer. And my first thought was like, "Oh my God, what happened?" I been through so many relapses with Chris. I just like the worst.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just when I was like, and my wife's looking at me like, "Oh, now what are we going to do?" I look up the block, and Chris is rounding the corner with these 2 huge bags, from grocery bags of like, ice cream, Cheetos, just all this shit. And on top of that, these 2 huge purple dinosaurs, just like with this grin, like, I got these girls for the day. Like, and we had so much fun. And
I'm not going to mess this up. I'm going to be the best uncle ever.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my God.
It was just the greatest. I can vividly see it, And then we didn't take a lot of pictures because we didn't have, iPhones, but my girls said years later, it's like all our pictures with Uncle Chris, like they all have Cheetos in them. Why is that? It's food is love. I don't know,
That is so funny. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And it's just crazy because what you just said, that story that's what I think I would imagine Uncle Chris to be like. Are you kidding me? Just running down the street like, I'm here. I just got all these snacks. And like, yeah, Terry, it is the most human story ever. It literally is just so, to me, it embodies, I guess, who he was, just a lovable, right? Like I'm sure, Tom, he wanted to make you proud and your wife proud as well. Like, look at me, look what I can do, like, I mean,
no, it's
God. Well, just because I don't want to take up too much more of your time, is there anything that, you want people to know about yourself, about, your brother, about your upcoming projects besides the biopic?
No, as I said, I still go out and speak on recovery. I'm actually just about to transition to a new position. There's a startup that I've been, really connected with over the last couple of years here in Madison, Wisconsin, called recovery.com, which is a website that hooks people to treatment and recovery around the globe. Really, it's one of the fastest growing companies in America. Inc. magazine just came up with a list, and I get to be kind of the outreach and spokesperson. Just get out there and talk about recovery and what how and help us out there and connecting people. And so I'm really excited about that opportunity. And then again, using the movie down the road to continue. Yeah, because honestly, all this work I do in recovery, I guarantee you, Chris would be here with me. I'm actually doing his work. He's the one that taught me, to care about this stuff, to try to make a difference with people, and that's all Chris. That wasn't never on my radar,
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I knew that. I didn't. And I think it's important for people to know about people that struggle with addiction. It's not so much of this is out of their control. They want to be sober. They want to do better. I mean, right? So it's like, yeah, he clearly wanted to, but unfortunately, in the end, it did beat him. But that does not mean that he did not try, and he did not try.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah,
and struggle. My God, did he struggle? And again, that's just, I guess I'm just looking to when the biopic comes out, I really am looking for him to be just humanized in a way that we haven't seen before, because I think that is what will set this apart from everything else that, you know what I mean? All these movies that come out and everything about him that we've learned in documentaries, we've learned, but we haven't seen it acted in this type of way. So
the humor is just the icing on the cake. There's so much more. The cake is really, and showing people that is going to be fun.
And just one last question. Sorry, I just think about this. Did he ever speak to you about any romance or anyone, that he was romantic with in his life?
That's kind of sad. I think he really, he wanted that so bad. Actually, one time when I had, either 2 or 3 kids, we had breakfast. We had brunch downtown, and he goes, "Yeah, all I want is what you and Dad had. This family with kids. That's all I want." And I said to him, like, Chris, you'll never have that. You'll have something that makes sense for you. Like, don't try to, have this Midwestern thing. You've got a different life, and you can still have, something really meaningful. But don't look at Dad and I as say, I want that. Like, it's different for everyone. And he was like, huh? Everyone. It was hard he didn't trust relationships. you know, because it was just like he goes, yeah, I think he said this to our, you know, his friend father Matt Foley. He said,
Yeah.
in college, like all my girlfriends look like me. Now they're Victoria's Secrets models. Like, what's going on? Like, I'm smart enough to know that
Oh, okay. Sorry. So he's saying before they look like me. Now all of a sudden,
now it's like
they're
yeah,
showing themselves.
literally. And
Oh,
he goes, "No, I'm no dummy. I'm not gonna, you know, say no." But I'm like, it's not real deep stuff.
okay.
And I
Okay.
think, you know, he made a joke out of it, but beneath that was a lot of pain, you know, I think.
Oh, God.
And they didn't all look like they. Yeah, he had some beautiful, wonderful relationships in high school and college, but
That
yeah.
is
But to go
so
from that to, you know, to these great Midwestern girl to literally he was dating a Victoria's Secrets model. It was
well,
like,
and there's like one picture on Getty Images, and I don't even think they have her name, but she went with him to a premiere, and I'm like almost jealous. I'm like, who's this? I don't know who she is. I'm like, who is this girl? Like, is she nice to him? Is she
no,
treating him well? Like,
well, I think Spade dated her before that, so I think it was competitiveness. You know,
oh, jeez.
he
God,
stole from Spade.
yeah, but what you said is super profound, I think, and so
Yeah.
true. Like you're living this different life than dad and I. So why are you trying to, replicate that? So, and Trevor, I'm just pinning this. He was the most approachable guy. Kids just smiled when they saw him and he embraced everyone. And I think all of us, yeah, know that to be true, even if we didn't know him. But Tom, where can you just announce where everyone can follow you so I can just put that in the notes as well?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, let's see. What's my Instagram? I usually do
Oh,
Instagram.
you're Tom at Tom Farley 2 on Instagram. I know that one.
Tom Farley
Yeah.
too.
Not to be creepy. Sorry.
That's probably the best thing. I know that's where I do most of my work. My
Okay.
kids are always bugging me to do something. You know, she goes, yeah, my Emma, my daughter's like, would you please get a website? You've got so much content. And here
Yeah.
I'm trying to build a, my own podcast and stuff. I'm struggling with content. And you're like, you've got stuff all over the place.
You have so much. Seriously, so much. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'm like very emotional. I apologize for just
I get that. It's crazy that I'm like I the same way. I can't get through a talk without getting a little, choked up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you understanding and just sharing, God, these wonderful stories. We'll have to do this again very soon, not 2 years. And yeah.
I'm gotta get up to New York more, and we
Yeah,
will.
and literally give your daughters my number. You have my number. We'll connect offline. But again, I want to thank you, Tom Farley, for joining me and just sharing your story and sharing just awesome memories about your brother that I'm going to go into the weekend in a good mood. So thank you.
Right? Yeah, I know, and you brought that out of me too. I'm going to feel the same way. So, a lot of people come up to me, tell me about Chris, other stuff, but I rarely walk away like I am now, just feeling really, wow, that was great. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh no. That makes
Yeah.
me feel so good. Is it my boogers on the table? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. Well, yeah, I know, right there. But we'll be in touch, and I'll talk to you very soon. Tom
Fantastic. So
Farley,
good for
everyone.
you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank
Take
you.
care. See ya.
Bye.